5 years of work is now complete on the new Canadian History Hall at the Canadian Museum of History. We tour the new exhibit that represents 15,000 years of Canadian history. Mosaic Canada has opened in Gatineau. Although admission is free, many are complaining of expensive parking and long wait times to enter the event. And the community of Riverside celebrated 50 years of the Brookfield restaurant. Thank you for joining me on Ottawa this week. Well, with it being Canada's 150th birthday, the new Canadian History Hall in Gatineau has opened. On July 1st, the Duke and Duchess of Cornwall opened the exhibit, and now you can go and visit it. Join me from the Canadian Museum of History in Gatineau with more. Well, I'm currently standing in the Canadian Museum of History over in Gatineau, surrounded by Aboriginal culture, yet this is no longer the focal point of the museum. The new Canadian History Hall has opened, and it's the only exhibit in all of Canada that gives a clear picture of the past 15,000 years of history our country has offered. 5 years of hard work and researching has finally paid off at the Canadian Museum of History. The new Canadian History Hall officially opened on Canada Day, and Prince Charles and Camilla were there. With the new hall, Canadians will be able to walk through 15,000 years of history, from Aboriginal schools to the Quebec separatist movement. Now, the Canadian History Hall, of course, has a lot on the Aboriginal culture, because let's face it, this has to do with 15,000 years of Canadian history. However, in more recent times, Quebec has seen a fair share of controversy with wanting to leave Canada, and well, that is shown here in this section of the hall. The new Canadian Hall at the Canadian Museum of History in Gatineau, that covers a span of 4,000 square meters, does not only provide a look at 15,000 years of history, it also shows some of Canada's darkest movements, including Quebec separatism in the 1970s and 90s. From oui and no pins to puppets of Jean Chrétien, the exhibit details the tense atmosphere Canada was facing. The Canadian Museum of History is known for its Aboriginal displays, and that continued to be shown through history from when they first arrived in Canada until the residential school disaster. The voices of Indigenous people echo through the hall, sharing their devastating stories of the blood-shedding conditions they faced. Artifacts from stone carvings to canoes and teepees are on display, as well as some traditional Aboriginal clothing. Now, whenever many people think of history, they think of the past and not more present times. However, here at the Canadian Museum of History, in the Canadian History Hall, history is also shared the shattered memories of the Afghan War just a few years ago. In order to get a clear picture of the history that has impacted Canada, you also have to reflect on more modern times. When the World Trade Center collapsed on September 11, 2001, Canada was immediately involved in fighting in the Afghan War. Since 2002, 159 Canadian Forces personnel were killed while protecting our nation. The exhibit shows some of the rough conditions Canadian soldiers faced, not only on the battlefield, yet also with their accommodations. And as you walk through the hall, you can't help but be truly inspired by the country where you live. Although Canada has seen its fair share of struggles like any developed country, we have always found a way around it. The museum's display, however, is quite different compared to what used to be there. Now, for anyone who visits the museum, they are going to notice a lot of changes if they haven't been here in a couple of years. However, one thing stayed the same, and that's the church. The church that has been in the museum since 1996 was erected in 1907 in Smoky Lake, Alberta. It has historical significance because Ukrainians in Canada turned to their faith as a way to look for hope in their new life in Canada. Also here in Gatineau for Canada's 150th birthday, Mosaic Canada has taken over parts of Jacques Cartier Park for 107 days, and while words can't describe how beautiful it is to see. However, because of how popular Mosaic Canada is, many people are complaining of long wait times and expensive parking. Events for Canada's 150th birthday are also going on in Gatineau, the biggest being Mosaic Canada at Jacques Cartier Park, the country's largest horticulture exhibit. Since the exhibit opened in mid-June, it has already attracted thousands of people, and with that comes some long lines. In total, the exhibit has about 40 plant structures from horses to dragons and even monsters. The theme of the exhibit is Canada's 150 years of history, from our values and cultures. Different flowers are planted to represent all of the different 13 provinces and territories. Some of the displays are also to represent Canada's Aboriginal history from Quebec and Labrador. The exhibit also has a bit of an international touch. Shanghai and Beijing also have pieces of artwork up to represent Canada's relationship with Asian countries. The biggest attraction of Mosaic Canada is Mother Earth. The centerpiece of the exhibit is of a female holding her hand out with a flowing waterfall. Around her are other animals such as deer and ducks. At the front of the park is a train to represent the first train that went across the country in 1887. As nice as all of these exhibits are, it is hard for many to get to. If you wish to drive there, don't expect free parking. And although Mosaic Canada is a free event to attend, many people are complaining about the cost of parking. For some, they have to spend up to $10 just on parking in order to get into the event. The cost of parking, however, can range anywhere between $10 and $30 for anyone who is lucky. That's not to mention how hard it is to find a parking spot. With the event only on for 107 days ending on October 15, Ottawa area residents aren't wasting any nice days to get out and see the once-in-a-lifetime exhibition. The cost of parking, however, is to keep the event free. All money spent on parking goes towards the upkeep of the flowers. Organizers of the event do encourage people to take public transit if that's possible. Also, be prepared to wait in long security lines and have your bags searched. Well, that's it from here in Gatineau. We now return back to Ottawa for the latest in news. About 500 people gathered at the Brookfield Restaurant and Confectionery on Saturday to celebrate 50 years of the restaurant that has been serving the community of Riverside. To celebrate 50 years of the Brookfield Restaurant, thousands of Riverside South residents joined together to take a trip down memory lane. The Aboud family, who immigrated to Canada from Lebanon, originally settled in Sarnia, Ontario in the 1940s before coming to Ottawa. On July 1st, 1967, while Canada was celebrating its 100th birthday and festivities were beginning to take place at Expo 67 in Montreal, a 50-year legacy was just unfolding. Owner of the restaurant, Joyce Aboud, is proud to celebrate the past 50 years of her family-run business.
My mom and dad came from Lebanon, lived in Sarnia, Ontario, where I was born. And we had family here. My older sisters needed to go to university, so my father came here and kind of scouted out Ottawa, thinking that this would be a good place for them to settle. And sure enough, they found the Brookfield Restaurant.
When the restaurant first opened, Brookfield was no more than a dirt road. For anyone who comes to the restaurant, they are treated as a member of the family.
You walk through the door, you're part of the family.
And as you walk into the restaurant, history of the past 50 years is everywhere. Pictures of the past 50 years of the restaurant are on display here inside, and well, for many, it's a travel through time. Pictures of the past 50 years were on display, and for many who used to be students at the Brookfield High School, it was almost a school reunion. The festivities outside included food as well as music, with the main performer being Johnny Vegas. Craig Cyril, who is the president of the Riverside Park Community and Recreation Association, says they partnered with the Brookfield Restaurant because of all they have done for the community.
Well, I'm the president of the Riverside Park Community and Recreation Association, and we partnered with the Brookfield Confectionery because they've been such a good partner with us in the community, and we just wanted to have an event that everybody could celebrate 50 years.
Overall, the event was a major success, and more people showed up than anticipated. Earlier on in the day, the event featured a bouncy castle and a balloon artist for the children. Well, with it being summertime, many people are getting out to enjoy the nice weather, and many people are attending music festivals across the city, with the latest being Blues Fest. We received a video into our newsroom of Cornwall paramedics responding to a call at Blues Fest. With summer underway, music festivals will be popping up all around the city, yet not without some concerns. A few weeks ago, Escapade saw 10 people overdose over the 2-day festival, yet paramedics responded to 18 medical emergencies. The number of overdoses organizers say have went down by 50%. In previous years, the festival saw about 20 overdoses. Now with Blues Fest underway, safety precautions are in place in case anyone overdoses. This year, the Canadian Ski Patrol will be on hand and are trained on how to use the life-saving drug naloxone that can be administered to anyone who is having an overdose to opioids. This all comes at the same time Ottawa has seen an increase in opioid overdoses, especially in Canada, where a few known teens have died in recent months. It is unclear how many overdoses the festival has seen so far, yet we do know that there have been a few reported. These videos sent to us by Capital Voice show some of the commotion that did happen during the festival, and a few young festival goers being treated for what is believed to have been overdoses. Now, this is not the most surprising part of the story. Paramedic crews from Cornwall were seen at Blues Fest and wouldn't give much of a reason why, other than they were responding to a Code 4.
Why are you here?
Any code 4s we do.
The paramedics say they were on Code 4 but did not give any explanation onto what that meant. As performers including Pink and 50 Cent performed, those who were at the festival say many people got severely intoxicated on drugs and alcohol. Although naloxone was on hand, it is unclear if it was ever needed. There is still no official number released on how many overdoses were seen over the course of the festival. Now, as I said, we don't know if they were responding to overdose calls or not. We do know a few overdoses have happened during Blues Fest, however we don't know an exact number. We are hoping to find out for next week's newscast. It has been about 2 weeks since 19-year-old Layla Attar has left Ottawa to go across Canada spreading awareness on mental health and addictions. So far, she has been to Montreal and Halifax and is now on her way to Winnipeg. I checked in with her to see how her Across Canada tour has been going. Last time we checked in with Attar, she had already been to Montreal and just arrived in Halifax. While Attar was in Halifax, she was able to speak to a few people who truly inspired her.
The past couple of days, I've spoken to a lot of people on the street. I have met with a couple individuals who have inspiring stories, and I have a few more I'm meeting with today.
In Halifax, Attar got to tour around the city from some of the city's oldest graveyards to the boardwalk where musical performances took place. Attar left from Halifax on a bus to Antigonish, where she stayed at the St. Francis Xavier University, which she says has been her best accommodation so far.
So this campus is beautiful. It's probably the nicest one I've stayed at so far. So you can't really see much here. It is huge. I think I walked like 40 miles just to get to one place, to my actual dorm room where I was staying or whatever.
After Antigonish, Attar hopped back on the train and traveled back to Ottawa, where she stayed for a few days and was interviewed by CBC.
Yeah, it was just eye-opening, I guess you could say.
On Tuesday, she left for Winnipeg and will be arriving on Thursday. There she will meet with some Aboriginal awareness groups as well as parents who have lost children from drugs. And if you wish to contact Layla to share your story, there are ways to do so. And a reminder to you that if you have a story you wish to share with Layla, email her at voicescrosscan@gmail.com or tweet her at voicescrosscan. Layla looks forward to hearing from you. Well, we are out of time for this week. Thank you all so much for watching. Next week we will be taking Ottawa This Week on the road to Renfrew, giving you a bit of a taste of the Ottawa Valley. We'll see you then. You can follow me on Twitter at Charlie_Senack and like my page on Facebook at Charlie Senack. Also, to stay up with TWIN News Ottawa, you can like our Facebook page at TWIN News Ottawa and follow us on Twitter at TWIN News Ott.